Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Kwasinda Larice, founder of The Path of Presence, where we learn to recognize, trust, and live from the presence of God. A thought that has been sitting deeply with me is, what have we been pushed to tolerate that love would never call normal? There are things happening every day that have become so familiar we barely stop to question them anymore. Fear around money, families living under constant pressure, people worrying about whether they can afford housing, healthcare, food, or even rest. Stress becoming so woven into daily life that peace begins to feel unrealistic. These things may be common, but common and normal are not always the same. And somewhere deep within us, I think we know the difference. How this reflection began is I have been thinking about how easily people are taught to adjust to circumstances that are slowly draining them. We become experts at managing fear. We learn how to function while exhausted. We learn how to appear responsible while constantly bracing for what might go wrong. We learn how to survive environments that leave very little room for peace, dignity, creativity, or joy. And eventually, instead of asking whether life should feel this way, we begin asking, how can I cope with it better? Coping is sometimes necessary. It does help us to endure difficult seasons and respond to realities we can't immediately change. But there is another question beneath coping, which is, when did we begin calling all of this normal? That question stayed with me because sometimes the first movement toward change is not fixing everything. Sometimes it's simply becoming honest about what should never have been accepted as the standard. This isn't about denying that life can be difficult. We all have our challenges. It's not about pretending hardship, loss, responsibility, or uncertainty doesn't exist. And it's not about shaming anyone for the ways they have had to survive. This is about recognizing normalization. Something can continue for so long that people stop seeing it as harmful. They begin to experience it as ordinary. Fear becomes wisdom. Constant pressure becomes adulthood. Emotional depletion becomes maturity. Always expecting the worst becomes responsibility. Family dysfunction becomes tradition. Scarcity becomes a way of thinking before it is even a circumstance. And because everyone around us may be living similarly, we begin to assume that this is simply what life is. But familiarity doesn't make something healthy. Widespread suffering doesn't make suffering sacred. And survival doesn't mean the conditions that required survival were ever right. And this may look like opening your eyes in the morning and immediately feeling anxious about what needs to be paid. It could look like being unable to rest without feeling guilty because there is always something else to do. It may look like living in a family where everyone is under strain, but no one feels permitted to name it. It may look like watching negative news so often that hopelessness begins to feel more realistic than hope. It could look like expecting every good season to be followed by something painful. It could also look like continually abandoning your own peace because someone else's emergency always seems more important. It could also look like telling yourself, this is adulthood, or this is just how my family is. Things have always been hard. I should be grateful and stop complaining. Other people have it worse than I do. But acknowledging that something is harming you is not ingratitude. Recognizing that an atmosphere is unhealthy is not weakness. And wanting a life with greater peace, stability, dignity, and care doesn't make you unrealistic. When fear is experienced repeatedly, it doesn't only remain outside of us. It begins shaping the inner world. The body learns tension, the mind learns anticipation, the heart learns disappointment, the nervous system learns to remain alert. The soul becomes accustomed to carrying more than it was meant to carry continually. After a while, a person may not even recognize how braced they have become. They may believe, this is simply who I am. But sometimes what we call personality is actually adaptation. Sometimes what we call strength is a survival response that never had permission to rest. Other times, what we call being realistic is a heart that has been disappointed so often that it's afraid to expect goodness. And sometimes the exhaustion we feel is not only physical, it is the exhaustion of continually adapting to what our spirit knows is beneath the fullness of life. This is where love becomes more than a comforting idea. Love is gentle, but love is not passive about what diminishes human life. Love can meet us in difficult circumstances. Love can strengthen us while we survive them. Love can hold us through grief, uncertainty, and seasons we would never have chosen. But love doesn't have to call those conditions ideal simply because it accompanies us within them. Love doesn't say, remain afraid because fear is familiar, accept indignity because others have accepted it, or keep abandoning yourself because that's what you have always done, or stop expecting peace because life is difficult. Love tells the truth about what something is doing to us. It says, I see what you have endured. I honor how you survived. And I do not believe survival is the only life available to you. This matters spiritually because God's love does more than comfort us inside what hurts. His love also retains what we have learned to accept. It begins showing us where fear has become too influential, where scarcity has shaped our imagination, where constant strain has made peace feel unsafe, where injustice has been treated as inevitable, where we have mistaken depletion for faithfulness. Love doesn't shame us for how we've adapted, but love may lovingly ask us whether we are ready to stop agreeing with what has been draining life from us. This message may be for you if you have become so accustomed to pressure that you don't know how to live without it. It may be for you if you feel guilty whenever you choose rest, peace, or care for yourself. It may be for you if you have learned to expect hardship before goodness has even had the opportunity to arrive. It might be for you if your life looks functional from the outside, but inwardly you are always preparing for the next problem. It also may be for you if something within you has been quietly saying, I do not want to live this way anymore. You do not have to dismiss that voice. It may not be selfishness, immaturity, or a refusal to accept reality. It may be the part of you that is awakening to the truth that life was never meant to be governed entirely by fear. You may not be able to change every condition immediately or have control over every system, expense, relationship, or uncertainty, but you can begin changing what you agree with inwardly. You can begin refusing to let fear become your deepest truth. You can begin making room for peace before every circumstance is perfect. You can begin recognizing that constant suffering is not proof of spiritual maturity. And you can begin asking God to show you what life looks like when love, not fear, becomes the place from which you live. You don't have to solve your entire life today. Just begin by noticing. Ask yourself, what have I accepted as normal that is quietly draining me? Where has fear shaped the way I think, plan, pray, or have expectation? What pressure have I carried for so long that I no longer question it? What emotional atmosphere have I adapted to that I no longer want governing my life? Then tell the truth gently. You might write, I recognize that this has been part of my life, but I no longer wanted to define what I believe life must always be. You might begin protecting your emotional atmosphere more intentionally. That could mean reducing exposure to content that repeatedly feeds fear. It could mean creating small spaces of quiet in your day, or questioning a family pattern instead of automatically repeating it. It could mean receiving help without seeing yourself as a burden, or choosing one practical step toward financial, emotional, relational, or spiritual stability. It could mean allowing yourself to imagine goodness again. And it may mean bringing this honestly before God, such as, Father, show me what I have learned to tolerate, that your love is inviting me to see differently. This isn't about forcing positivity over real pain. It's about refusing to let pain become the only truth you can imagine. It's about allowing love to restore possibility. There are things people have been pushed to tolerate that love would never call normal. Fear being the atmosphere of everyday life. Scarcity shaping every expectation. Dignity being treated like a privilege instead of something human beings deserve. Families living under so much strain that tenderness becomes difficult. People becoming emotionally and physically exhausted simply trying to remain afloat. These things may be common. They may be woven into the systems and circumstances around us, but we do not have to call them sacred. We do not have to confuse familiarity with truth. And we don't have to let what has been normalized become the measure of what we believe is possible. Sometimes the soul is not merely tired. Sometimes the soul is telling the truth. It is saying, this is hurting me. This is beneath love. I was not created to live permanently braced against life. Listen to that truth without shame. Let it show you what needs care. Let it reveal where fear has had too much authority in your life. Let it awaken your desire for a life rooted more deeply in God's peace, wisdom, dignity, and love. You may not change everything at once, but you can stop calling these things normal. And sometimes that is where a new way of living begins. Let's say a prayer. Dear God, thank you for meeting us with compassion in everything we have had to survive. Thank you for not shaming us for the ways we've learned to cope, adjust, and keep going. Thank you also that your love tells the truth. Show us what has become so familiar that we no longer recognize how deeply it's affecting us. Show us where fear has shaped our thinking. Show us where scarcity has limited what we believe is possible. Show us where pressure has become our daily atmosphere and where we have confused depletion with responsibility. Help us recognize what is not life-giving without becoming overwhelmed by everything we cannot immediately change. Give us wisdom for the next step. Teach our bodies how to receive peace. Teach our minds how to make room for hope. Teach our hearts that goodness doesn't always have to be followed by fear. Help us release our agreement with everything that diminishes dignity, love, care, and life. And teach us how to live from your presence, where truth and love can guide us into a healthier, freer, and more whole way of being. In Jesus' name, amen. So thank you for being here with me today. And I want you to carry this with you as we go. Just because something has become common doesn't mean love would ever call it normal. That's our sacred reflection for this week. I pray this video enlightened, encouraged, and met you with change. In my next video, I share how to carry the atmosphere of prayer with you. Thank you so much for being here, for watching, subscribing, sharing, and supporting this space. If you'd like to go deeper, you can explore the links in my channel description, including my website, Sacred Whispers podcast, my blog, the gift shop, sacred digital resources, and my newsletter list to stay connected with what we're creating and sharing. And if you're interested in taking the Path of Presence journey, you can also visit the Walk With Me link in the description below. These videos are shared for spiritual reflection, encouragement, and entertainment purposes only. And if this video spoke to you, I truly appreciate you liking, sharing, and subscribing. It really helps support the channel and allows this message to reach more people like you. I'll see you in the next video. Until then, take care of your heart, take care of your spirit, and take care of you.